Oh, the chat is disabled for attendees. So
Yeah,
they
that's
can't
just
chat
as-
in the meeting for some reason, but anyway. I'm going to call this meeting to order. It is being recorded. It will be posted online. Our chairman is out. He has given a proxy for his vote for Michael Thompson to vote for the city of Kingsport. Our vice chair is out. He is attending online. He's listening in. So we will have to do a election for a chairman pro tem just for this meeting. So is there any nominations for a chairman pro tem just for this meeting that will stop once the meeting's adjourned?
I'd like to make a motion, Michael Thompson, the chairman pro tem.
Okay, Rhonda nominated Michael Thompson.
I'll second that.
Blake, second. And we do have a quorum of 4 members here, so I will go ahead and do the roll call vote to make Michael the chairman pro tem. So Blake Ayler,
Yes.
Chase Milner,
Yes.
Rhonda Sawyer,
Present.
and Michael Thompson.
Yes, I
Um,
guess.
So Michael, if you want to take it over and
Well,
turn
if
it
you,
back over to me.
I was gonna say, if you would go ahead and go over the general information and attendance roll call that we're using for this meeting.
Okay. So this is an in-person meeting. We're allowing remote public access, live remote public access through the Zoom webinar. It's being recorded and an audio or video recording will be posted online. I assume the Q&A box is working for the attendees if the chat box is not. Or raise your hand whenever we get to the public comment sections, or when we get to the state and partner updates. If you have updates, you can raise your hand and we'll promote you to panelists so you can speak. If you have a problem hearing us, raise your hand, put something in the Q&A box, just let us know. Joining us remotely, we have several remote attendees today. Okay, and Sean says you can't enter in the Q&A. So joining us remotely are Jessica Rich and Sean Santayo from Federal Highway Tennessee Division. We've got Christopher Stiffo, who is the new operations supervisor at the airport. He came from Cincinnati Airport. Corey DeVell, I'm not sure who he is with. He's a new one that just must have signed up. Jimmy Adkins, who's our vice chair, is on here. Matthew Kate with the Tennessee Transportation Assistance Program. Mason Haddad is with Thompson Engineering. Tabitha Moore with Frontier Health. Tiffany Dubinsky with Virginia DRPT. And then for the presentation in a little bit for the local road safety plan, we have Eric Tang with VHB consultant. Karen Scurry and Rosemarie Anderson are with Federal Highway Office of Safety in Washington, D.C. So since we have remote attendees, we will conduct a roll call for attendance and each action item. And I will go ahead and call the attendance roll call. So Blake Ayler,
Present.
Chase Milner,
Present.
Rhonda Sawyer,
Present.
Michael Thompson,
Present.
and Amber Corbett.
Present.
Okay. And Amber, since our chair and vice chair are absent, I've conducted an election for
Okay.
chairman pro tem, and Michael is doing the chairman
Perfect.
duties right now. So for this meeting.
All right, at this time, we'll do public comment on agenda items only. If anyone has any public comments they'd like to make, please do so at this time, and it is limited to 5 minutes. Seeing none, call that public comment session closed, and I will we'll move to the third item, which is approval of minutes from the June 16th called meeting. Is there a motion to approve said minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second that motion.
Any discussion? If not, please call the roll.
We had a motion by Rhonda, second by Blake. Roll call vote, Blake Ayler,
Aye.
Chase Milner.
Aye.
Rhonda Sawyer, Michael Thompson,
Aye.
and Amber Corbett.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Item 4, we'll turn the floor over to Eric Tang, and you can introduce the whole group there on the presentation of the local road safety plan.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. As I was introduced, I'm Eric Tang of VHB Consultant Support for Federal Highway Administration, and we're excited to present the draft, the local road safety plan for your metropolitan region. I'd like to pass the floor over to the federal partners here, starting off with Karen.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Karen Scurry with Federal Highways Headquarters Office of Safety, and the program manager for the Highway Safety Improvement Program. And Rosemary, are you with us?
Yes, I am, but I don't know what's happening with my camera, but it's okay.
It's very pretty grass.
I know. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rosemary Anderson. I'm with Federal Highway Administration Office of Safety. I am the Local and Rural Roads Program Manager. And we are happy to be here to actually present to you guys what we've been doing over the last year or so on your local road safety plan. Thanks.
All right, so I will now share the slideshow that we've prepared to recap the draft plan that hopefully all of you had a chance to take a look at, and we certainly welcome your comments throughout. So can everyone see the view from your conference room?
Yes.
All right. Yes, this was taken during one of the meetings that we had for this plan. I certainly love this picture, and we use that for the cover for the plan. So I'm sure this is a familiar sight for you guys. So I'll now pass it over to Karen with introductory remarks and additional background on the project.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. As Eric mentioned, we're just going to provide an overview of the plan today, and we're really looking forward to any questions or feedback that all of you might have on the plan that I believe was shared with all of you prior to today's meeting, and then hopefully discuss next steps. As Eric mentioned, we engaged with a variety of stakeholders in the Kingsport region through 2 workshops that were held there in Kingsport, and as well as field reviews that were held in November of 2022, as well as March of this year. And the outcomes of those workshops and field reviews are reflected throughout the local road safety plan. And so what Eric's showing here is an outline of the plan, which is also a preview of today's presentation. And so the plan presents background information about the region and the MPO. It introduces the safe system approach and the importance of equity in the transportation safety planning process. And then it really gets into the details of the plan, including the vision, mission, and goal, the data analysis results, the safety emphasis areas and strategies, and then wraps up with a discussion of implementation, evaluation, and potential funding opportunities for the identified regional safety priorities that are presented in the plan. And so, Eric, yeah, thank you. So we thought it would be helpful just to start with an overview of what is a local road safety plan and what this process looked for the Kingsport MTPO. And so a local road safety plan is one of Federal Highway's proven safety countermeasures, and it really provides a framework for identifying, analyzing, and prioritizing roadway safety improvements on local roads. And many local agencies and MPOs across the country have developed local road safety plans over the past couple of years, and they've really proven effective in helping agencies identify where the safety issues are, and then prioritizing those improvements for implementation as funding becomes available. And so as we developed the local road safety plan, we followed this 6-step process for the Kingsport MTPO local road safety plan. And that first step is really a really important step in the development of a local road safety plan. And we really had some great safety champions there in Michael, Bill, and Leslie. So we thank you all for your leadership in developing this plan. They did a really good job of bringing together a broad range of safety stakeholders representing the 4 E's of engineering, education, enforcement, and emergency response. And those stakeholders provided very valuable input throughout the development of the local road safety plan. Eric and his team really did all of the data analysis They analyzed safety data and equity data to identify high injury networks, and also did systemic safety analysis to identify improvements that can be implemented at locations that may not have necessarily had a crash before, but have a risk for future potential crashes. And so Eric's going to get into a lot more details about that data analysis in just a few minutes. And then at that first workshop we held there in Kingsport, the stakeholders looked at the data analysis that Eric and his team put together and identified emphasis areas or priority safety focus areas for the region. And we'll share some of those today as well. And then during the second workshop, we really dug deeper into the data and identified strategies to address some of those high priority locations and high risk areas in the region. All of that information was prioritized and incorporated into the local road safety plan that we're presenting today. And then the last step of the local road safety plan process is to evaluate and update the local road safety plan. And that's more long-term. And we do have some information about that in the plan, about what that might look like. And we'll share that with you later in the presentation as well. Before we get into the details of the plan, we did want to just provide a quick overview of, I'll call them 2 foundational elements that were at the core of the local road safety plan efforts. And Eric, if you can go to the next slide.
I was going to flag, Karen. We've also included in the bottom left-hand corner page number in the draft where you can find more details about what's on the relevant slide. So just a little. We'll distribute this PDF to Leslie, who will then distribute to the rest of you. So you have this as a reference.
Good, thank you for that, Eric. So the 2 foundational elements of the local road safety plan are the safe system approach and equity, and you'll see those integrated throughout the plan itself. And so when we talk about a safe system approach, this is really based on the principle that we all make mistakes, but we shouldn't have to die because of those mistakes. It acknowledges that humans are vulnerable and acknowledges that it's our responsibility to design and operate the roadway system to keep impact energy on the human body at tolerable levels. And we do that through sharing responsibility across all stakeholders. And so it's important that we had the stakeholders engaged not only in the development of the local road safety plan, but also throughout implementation of the strategies and projects that are identified in the plan too. The Kingsport MTPO local road safety plan uses the 5 elements of the safe system approach that are shown here in the center ring: the safe road users, safe vehicles, safe speeds, safe roads, and post-crash care as the framework for integrating the emphasis areas and strategies throughout the plan. And so by addressing all of these safe system elements, the MPO is being proactive, which is one of the safe system principles, and building redundancy into the system so that if one part fails, then the other part is there. There are other controls in place in those other elements to prevent fatalities and serious injuries. And so the local road safety plan adopts the safe system approach and integrates it throughout the plan. Equity is another key piece of the plan that was talked about at length with the stakeholders, and the consideration of demographics and equity really influence the safety of all road users and supports your region's social equity goal of providing equitable investments in transportation to enable quality life for all residents. And so the KMTPO and its stakeholders considered equity during each phase of the local road safety plan development process. Eric will share with you some of the equity analysis that was overlaid with the safety analysis. And then equity was also considered in the identification of the local road safety plan strategies to ensure that we're addressing the safety needs of all road users through the local road safety plan. And so the safe system approach and equity are really integrated throughout the plan, and you'll see that throughout today's presentation and as you review the plan as well. And so now we can get into the details of the plan. And one of the key elements of the plan are the vision, mission, and goal statements. And these really set the policy, tone, and direction for safety in the region and really communicate what you hope to achieve through implementation of the local road safety plan. And so these statements were developed based on input from the stakeholder group. And I know that you can see them here on the slide. But I think it's helpful just to say them out loud so that you can hear them and know what direction you're focusing on for safety moving forward. So the vision for the local road safety plan is to eliminate all deaths and life-changing injuries on Kingsport metropolitan area roadways. And there was a lot of discussion and even a change in course to focus this local road safety plan on all roadways within the Kingsport metropolitan area. Typically, local road safety plans just focus on local plans, but because the MPO represents all roads, the decision was made by the stakeholder group to focus on all roads in the plan. The mission for the plan is to implement a collaborative, data-driven 4E approach across engineering, enforcement, education, and emergency response to reduce and prevent fatalities and serious injuries on all roads. And so that really gets to that safety is proactive principle of the safe system approach. And then the goal is to reduce crashes annually on our roadways. And so this is located on page 8 in the draft local road safety plan. And I'm going to now turn it over to Eric to really get into the details of the data analysis and results.
All right, thank you, Karen. And feel free to put in any questions in the Q&A, and we'll be happy to answer questions as we go through the remaining slides of this presentation. So what you see here on the screen is how we've tried to overlay those emphasis areas. Like Karen said, those areas of focus for your safety concerns in the region and how they relate with each other. Because as you can imagine, you can have multiple factors in a crash, right? Somebody could be running off the road, could be speeding, could be not wearing a seatbelt, could be driving drunk. Multiple factors can be in play. But rather than having a 5x5 complex matrix, right, what you see here is a two-dimensional matrix to show the correlation between two factors. And we just wanted to highlight this because these types of percentages helped inform how you could potentially prioritize your investments in safety, whether it be from the infrastructure side or the behavioral side or both. So you can see that interrelationship between factors. So to read this table, and we won't have to go through every single box here, but the idea is to read across the row. So let's say for the first row, roadway departure, 29% in the middle there, 29% of the roadway departure fatal and serious injury crashes also involve an unbelted driver. So, okay, so there's that, you can almost say like a third of your roadway run off the road crashes has somebody who's unbelted. So does that tell us to invest in programs to encourage drivers to be belted? That's just an outcome of this type of analysis to show that interrelationship between emphasis areas. So these emphasis areas in the columns and the rows, these were identified through that stakeholder feedback during that first workshop in late 2021. And this table you can find on page 15 of the draft. Oh, I should say that this data is from the last 5 full years of crash data that was obtained earlier on in the LRSP process. So this is for the period from 2016 to 2020. And data has been collected from both Tennessee DOT and from Virginia DOT. As we all know, this is a bi-state metropolitan planning region. So based on the emphasis areas identified by the stakeholders, as well as acknowledging the incorporation of the safe system approach, we took the effort here to associate emphasis areas with particular elements of the safe system approach. And when you do go into the strategy matrices or the list of strategies included in this plan, we've grouped them in a way so that you would find the component emphasis areas underneath a safe system element. So you can see that the lane departure and intersection related type of strategies are under the safe road section, and so on and so forth. You read each column there and see which emphasis areas fall under which safe system element. And you can see that they're not necessarily pigeonholed into one safe system element. You can see that on the right-hand side there, post-crash care and safe vehicles, they all have some role to play in, all the emphasis areas have a role to play in those particular safe system elements. Another key component of our data analysis was to identify that high injury network that Karen mentioned closer to the top. The idea here is rather than chasing dots in a map, you collect crash data, the initial thought is to plot where all those dots are, right, on your roadway network. So rather than chasing all of them haphazardly, is there a way that we could strategically narrow down the number of corridors where you have a large share of your region's crashes? So in this, bear with me for a second, I need to move the toolbar here. In our analysis, we're able to identify 14%, that's the text in red there at the top, 14% of the region's roadways. On that set of roadways, you can find 71% of the region's fatal and serious injury crashes. Just as a note, K represents a fatal crash, so K means killed, and A is your serious injury crash. That's just nomenclature in that crash parlance, crash data parlance. So basically 14% of your roadways is the location of your 71% of your fatal and serious injury crashes. So that's a very strategic way of focusing your limited resources on those key corridors. What we found in that 14% were some notable routes. The ones that are listed here on the slide have at least 3% of the region's fatal and serious injury crashes. So we saw US 11 West, probably not surprised, not surprised to you guys because that's a major travel route, East Stone Drive and West Stone Drive. Just US 11 W itself has 21% of your region's KA crashes. Interstate 81, obviously another highly traveled route, then that TDOT maintains, of course, that over 9% of your crashes. We see Fort Henry Drive. We see US 23 on the Virginia side. We see Tennessee 93. That includes both Sullivan Gardens and John B. Dennis Highway. And then I-26, the James H. Quillen Parkway. So yeah, there's a relationship there for those routes that are highly traveled. But early on, when we looked at the routes that on the local system, before we decide to look at all the roads in the region, we did identify some additional routes at the local level that you'll see when we talk about the priority corridors later on in this presentation. So you'll see this high injury network analysis on page 17 and 18. Page 17 is a text behind it. Page 18 of the draft shows you a graphical version of the high injury network. So those roads in red are that 17% that we're talking about. The dots are the crashes that we're talking about, the fatal and serious injury crashes in the region. All right. So then, as Karen had described earlier, equity is a key component of this local road safety plan for the region. So we took a look at the time data that was available to us related to transportation equity, and we used the Environmental Protection Agency's Environmental Justice, or EJ, screen mapping tool, where they took information from the U.S. Census Bureau of block group data, and based on the American Community Survey. They're in that data set, they have this, what they call demographic index, that takes a look at income levels and persons of color. There are other available layers in this tool that relate to unemployment rate, age, and education. But the idea for us here, and I'll show you the graphic here on the next slide, was to identify at the census tract level percentiles. What are your top 10% census tracts that exhibit a demographic disadvantage, so to speak, and how do these various high percentile groups or census tracts overlay against the high injury network? So on the top right hand side, it might be small for some of you if you're happen to be using a small mobile device, but basically the red census tracts are those census tracts that have the highest demographic index in terms of income level and persons of color. So it's an index based on those two factors. So the idea is prioritizing investments on the high injury network in the higher percentile zones. So in this case, for this map here, it's the red, the orange, and the yellow. That's the 80 to 90, the 70, 80, and the 60 to 70, the 60 to 70th percentile for that demographic index. So it's just a way to see how there's that correlation between equity or access to transportation and the location of crashes. Just another way to help you, another tool in your toolbox for project prioritization in the region. So then another type of analysis that we conducted is what Karen had already mentioned earlier, is the systemic approach, finding those locations where the crash may not have occurred, but may happen because it exhibits characteristics that have been found in locations where crashes have already occurred. So it takes a more proactive approach. Like I said, we're trying to find ways that we're not just chasing dots in a map. This is a risk-based approach that takes a look at those factors that are commonplace, if you will, in your crashes in the region. So the way that we are able to conduct this systemic approach is, for an example here, what we have is a crash tree, basically a flow chart that takes a look at the combinations of factors where you can find a large percentage or a significant number of crashes. So as this is an example from the plan. We actually have a whole series of these crash trees located in the appendix of this document. So this is a sample. So in this case, we have the 581 fatal and serious injuries, and then we split it up. What portion of those crashes are at intersections, and what are those at not at an intersection? So we see that over half of your fatal and serious injury crashes are not at an intersection. That's not to say that we should ignore intersections. That's why we still have the boxes on the right, because in case you need to analyze those intersection crashes, you have that data on the right-hand side. But if we focus on the larger share of crashes, those non-intersection crashes on the left-hand side, we then look at what that type of crash was. And over half of those crashes were not a collision with a motor vehicle. So that's that tendency where that vehicle is running off the road, that single vehicle crash. And what is the resultant of that? What's that manner of crash for those crashes not with a motor vehicle? And we see that if we break it down even further, you can see that of the factors in that set of 5 in that column of cells here, that the largest share involved cars crashing into the ditch or an embankment. So this is just a way so that we can see what combinations of factors are commonplace, and then you can find other locations that have similar characteristics, and that could be a priority location for future safety investment, even if the crash has occurred, but it has those characteristics that have been seen from other crashes that have already occurred. So with all that data analysis, Pioneer Network, the systemic approach, the equity analysis, the feedback from stakeholders from the 2 workshops, taking a look at both Tennessee's and Virginia's strategic highway safety plan, the 5-year safety planning documents published by each state, we assembled a series of strategies for each of the safe system elements. And even within the safe system element, we've tried to identify the various activities or actions or strategies that are relevant for an emphasis area. So this is just an excerpt from the plan. These tables are on page 30 to 44 of the draft. And this is an example from the safe speeds section. And this is related, these are strategies related to speed management. So how we arranged it is that we have the actual strategy at hand. We identified who that lead agency be to lead and monitor that action, because as Karen mentioned earlier, there's that key component of evaluation and implementation. We need to see who is going to keep us honest, right, in implementing this particular strategy. Who are the partners involved, the key partners? Not to say that they're the only ones, but I would say these are the lead partners helping with the implementation of that particular strategy. What are the potential locations for that activity? Is it on the high injury network? Is it a specific location? What is the timeline? Helping you prioritize which ones could be done quickly because it's whether it be low cost or it's a high priority based on your feedback. What this crash modification factor and star rating is, a column is all about, is to give you an idea of what that potential crash reduction, if you will. So down here in that third row of 0.53 to 0.81, by implementing complete streets and road diets for context sensitive design, there's a potential to reduce your crashes from 19 to 47%, just depending on where you apply that particular countermeasure. And that's based on research conducted by a variety of entities, and we have source information for that. Then we list in the emphasis area column what are the relevant emphasis areas that this particular strategy relates to. So in this case, because of speed management, we see more about speed, but there are other ones where we list more than just one emphasis area. And then on the right-hand side, we just provide that source material where we obtain the idea. Was it from published documentation? Was it from the workshops that were held for this local road safety plan? So within the 5 safe system elements, we have all those tables, but just to give you an idea of what are in those tables, if you had a chance to look at them, we have in the safe speed section strategies that manage design enforcement of speed. So things like speed feedback signs, modifying speed limits, implementing complete streets design to provide a better context, a roadway that's designed for the context of the land use. Within the safe roads element, admittedly, this one has a bit more of an infrastructure bent, but that's why we talk about the use of effective design to reduce the severity of crashes. So we have items such as curve delineation, improved pavement markings, application of rumble strips, improving intersection designs, and so on and so forth. And then the next safe system element is safe road users. Within that set of strategies, we have a number of outreach, communication, education, enforcement efforts. So the more the behavioral side of things, that just helps address the other E's that we mentioned earlier about the 4E process. Post-crash care, certainly working with emergency response, incident management patrols, to clear incidents to prevent secondary crashes from occurring. Those are the types of strategies that you would find there. And in safe vehicles, admittedly, we're not in the position of dictating how manufacturers design their vehicles in Kingsport, but certainly there are opportunities, I would say, to implement new technology, down the road, with increased connectivity between vehicles. Maybe there's infrastructure type of activities that can be done to provide that infrastructure for vehicle to infrastructure communication, as an example. So those are the various strategies that you find across these 5 safe system elements, and it's all in those tables closer to the back of the draft plan. So certainly don't want to see this plan sitting on a shelf. We see this as an opportunity to enhance safety efforts. Obviously have been working in the safety field as an agency for a long time, but this provides an additional structure in your safety program. So to keep things moving, we discussed in the second stakeholder meeting about a safety committee, the formation of it, and then scheduling on a regular basis to monitor the progress of this local road safety plan. How are you going to implement those projects? We gave you information about systemic corridors. We gave you information on spot corridors, all those high injury networks and the various dot maps. So how do you plan to prioritize your projects so that you implement the various items that were identified in this plan? So of course, that relates to prioritization. And then the funding opportunities, we'll talk about that in a few moments. The implementation schedule of this plan. I already mentioned earlier, the state has both states have a 5-year strategic highway safety plan. You just updated your long-range transportation plan. from the previous discussion that we had with the stakeholder groups. There is that enthusiasm about maybe revising or providing update to this local road safety plan on a schedule so that it is in advance of your next LRTP update, so that the identified strategies in the safety plan can feed into your next LRTP. And the last bullet is just, I'm just, repeating myself there, is making sure that you evaluate the progress of your strategies periodically. And this is on page 45 of the draft. So the key thing that we really wanted to hopefully get some feedback, additional feedback on, and thanks to all those who have provided feedback so far to this draft, closer to the back of this draft is a series of initial set of corridors where we, based on the data analysis, these are potential maybe first year, second year priorities. Certainly this is not the most exhaustive list. I mean, we've provided like a dozen locations for you to consider. We're happy to add more to the list of these priorities. And what you find in this table is a series of corridors. That's the left first column. Who is the responsible agency for implementing the particular activity that's described on the left-hand side, the activity in the corridor? What is that potential cost, low, medium, or high? What is the safe system element that's addressed by that particular project? Which emphasis areas does that project address? Does that project, does that particular row overlap with any of those high percentile equity census tracts that we showed you earlier? And then a time frame on the right-hand side. What could be a short-term project, medium, and long-term project? So this is the first half of the table. This is on page 48, and then the second table is on page 49. Just to highlight some things here on this table is this graphic here. You already saw this map earlier with the Hindry network, but corridors of note that we saw. We mentioned earlier, US 11 West. There are a number of lane departure crashes in the midsection of this corridor here, west of the city. There are also potential for access improvements on this within this segment as well. Another corridor is Fort Henry Drive. You saw that as part of that list of those 6 corridors that were that had at least 3% of your fatal and serious injury crashes. Fort Henry Drive, as you know, there are definitely some winding segments. There are significant portions of it that have a lot of driveways. So there's access control concerns there. So there are also a number of intersections at play there. So yeah, this is a corridor with opportunity for safety investment. Another corridor that was identified was East Stone Drive on the previous table there. Yeah, this certainly has a number of driveways, and it's a heavily traveled segment, and it's definitely a priority for your region. And certainly some of your other documents that you produce have reflected that as well. East Cartage Valley Road, a little bit different. This one is a winding 2-lane segment that crosses the state line. This was part of our tour back in late fall last year, so we were able to visit the segment and see the undulating terrain of this corridor and the narrow widths in certain segments, and opportunities to provide additional delineation at the edge line, among other things. So then this table here is that second half of the table with additional prioritized locations for consideration, including the other half of Carter's Valley, additional segments of Fort Henry, John B. Dennis with Memorial Boulevard, which is more intersection oriented. We have the US 23 segments on the Virginia side, the additional improvements for East Stone Drive, and then as well as some systemic pedestrian improvements on Center Street, knowing that there's the potential for equity investments there within the downtown Kingsport. So just highlighting, graphically, Carters Valley Road. So the other half, we have US 23. At least this is the part when Weaver City. There's also in that list on the previous table, we also have segments on in this segment here of Gate City. We have Memorial Boulevard, which I mentioned with a number of potential systemic intersection improvements. And then Center Street going through town. We have, like I said, we're happy to take any questions and thoughts about those corridors. But we can take that after we just finish these a couple other slides here, because we're end of our slide deck here. There are a number of funding opportunities that are available to fund the various activities and strategies identified in the local road safety plan. So there's the Highway Safety Improvement Program. Both states administer this program. You've heard from Karen already. Karen is the HSIP guru at Federal Highway. There's that opportunity to have federal dollars fund some of your safety improvements, and it goes through the state DOT to fund those infrastructure improvements. The second bullet there is the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration grant funding to fund some of your behavioral programs, whether it be law enforcement activities, media campaigns, communication outreach efforts. That's an opportunity that you go through the Highway Safety Office in the respective states. There's the new Safe Streets and Roads for All grant program, $5 billion over the next 5 years from the feds, with money going directly, bypassing the states, going directly to regional and local agencies to either develop or augment current safety plans, and if there is an eligible plan, that money could go to implementation projects to actually conduct the activities identified in such an action plan. TDOT and VDOT, I should add VDOT there, sorry, Blake. TDOT and VDOT should have their individual programs, state specific. So they certainly can provide funds to support some of your activities, and of course, just your local funds. Working with your tax base to fund projects. And we have written descriptions on page 46 of this draft plan. All right, Karen, did I miss anything that you'd like for me to highlight?
I can't think of anything. I think you captured everything that's covered in the plan. Of course, there's more details in the plan itself, but I think you gave a good preview of what's in the plan and the outcomes from all of those efforts.
Well, thanks, Karen. And I guess Leslie and Michael, being from the planning agency there, maybe there's some items that you want to reflect on for the larger group that maybe Karen and I are not capturing in our remarks.
Well, really the only comment I would have is I just really appreciate the y'all going back and looking at a different approach. Like you said, we started out looking at just the local roads, and we had the big meeting, and then it's like, since this is for an MPO, this is a different beast. And this is really the first MPO that y'all had worked with, I believe. And so they totally changed their plan, looked at it all. We met again and changed it. So I really appreciate y'all going back, getting approval for all that, and doing the approach that you ended up giving us. So because we really got the best of both worlds. We got it cut just local roads, and we got it cut for all roads. So that was wonderful for us, and it gives us that roadmap for the future. So appreciate y'all's what y'all done in the presentation. Does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask them right now?
And the draft plan was sent out to all the stakeholders that were invited to our workshops, plus the executive board. He had asked for comments back by August 1st. So we've sent comments in. So this will be revised. And before it's officially adopted, it will be sent out, posted for public review and any feedback anybody wants to give. Anybody online have questions, raise your hand. Oh, we have a Jimmy says, great job. Definitely agree with Michael on its overarching focus. This will be a great product for the MTPO's future. I agree, Jimmy.
And hopefully this will help inspire, some of your annual target setting that the MPO is responsible for. So, certainly, this can be helpful in prioritizing projects to meet your desired targets down in the years ahead.
Greg Thomas has a question. Corey and Greg are from Cleveland MPO. So can you allow Greg to speak? We'll try to let you speak, Greg. Hold on just a second. Can you unmute yourself, Greg, and see if we can hear you?
Sure. Thank you, Leslie. No, my question was a real simple one. I was having a little internet trouble to start with, and I didn't catch your consulting firm's name and contact and stuff in that. If that's something that could be shared, that'd be great.
He just put it on the screen.
Great. Thank you.
No problem.
And I'm sorry, Corey, I didn't recognize your name. I guess Corey's with you, Greg, in Cleveland?
Yes, he is. City of Cleveland.
Anybody else have any questions? Jessica, he has promoted you to panelist. Jessica Rich is with Federal Highway Tennessee, safety engineer, getting ready to switch positions, but she's still going to be out of the Tennessee office. And she was involved in the workshops we held as well. So Jessica, if you have anything to add to any of this.
Great job. Thank you, FHWA Office of Safety and Eric for all of your work on this. And thank you for selecting Tennessee, selecting Kingsport. Well, we worked to select Kingsport, but thank you for putting this together. And I'm in definite agreement that it's going to help with the direction of the safety program, or help to reduce fatalities and serious injuries in the region.
Great. I would just like to urge anyone who has any additional comments on the draft to send it to us as soon as possible, because that would give us a perfect opportunity to update the draft with the comments that you present and then send it back out to you sooner than later.
I definitely want to give where credit's due. Rosary and I, went through a process of identifying locations, and Jessica, you took it upon yourself to reach out to the TDOT and then Kingsport. So together you guys made it happen. So it was a great partnership to get you guys on board, and it was great working with you guys through the process.
And we're hoping that other MPOs will kind of adopt the process that we did and develop their own safety plans as well.
Yeah, okay. Thank y'all all, and seeing no other questions, we're going to move on to number 5 on our agenda, which is the federal and state partner updates. And I have promoted the ones that I knew needed to be promoted. I do not see Sean.
Yeah, I think
So I
Sean
think he had
must
to
have
drop
dropped
off. So
So Karen and Jessica, since we're doing federal partner updates, do you all have any plugs for any of your other programs? Anything you want to share? Or Rosemary?
I would defer to Jessica if she has anything from the Tennessee division.
Okay, we'll move on to Tiffany with DRPT. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Yes, I'm available. Thank you so much. So I will provide a copy of my agency update for the meeting minutes, but I do have some updates for you all. First of which, DRPT had hosted our post-award webinar for all of our public transit agencies and MPO recipients. This was held on July 28th at 10 a.m. But if anyone was unable to attend, we do have the recording as well as a handout of the presentation available on Olga, and that'll be under the news and information page. And I provide a link to that in my meeting minute or my agency update. But if there are any questions heading into this grant cycle in terms of grants management, please feel free to reach out to me or any of your DRPT contacts. I feel like we've covered a lot about federal discretionary grant programs, but some of the ones that we've been focused on related to more like FTA focus includes the All Stations Accessibility Program. That is focusing on upgrading for legacy rail transit stations that remain inaccessible to those individuals with disabilities. So this is, focused on trying to bring all of our rail transit stations into being ADA compliant. There's also the Railroad Crossing Elimination Program. That program is focusing on highway rail or pathway rail grade crossing improvement projects that help improve safety and mobility of people and goods. That one in particular, we are coordinating with VDOT in terms of any projects that may be related to at-grade railroad crossings. So if there's interest in those programs, feel free to reach out to us. And we are offering, in terms of technical assistance, either letters of support or actual review of the applications as needed. I know that I think we've also, if it's not at this meeting, but at maybe previous meetings, there have been mentioned as well about Reconnecting Communities pilot program. And this is going to be a focus on connecting communities by removing, retrofitting, or mitigating highway or other transportation facilities so that have been creating barriers to community connectivity. So that one is a little bit more of a broader program in particular, but there is funding available at either the locality level, MPOs, or even nonprofits to be able to focus on ways to be able to help some of our highway or transit facilities work or function more in terms of their communities. So I just wanted to highlight all these competitive grant programs. There are some more that are coming through in early fall that, that we are anticipating, and I'll be glad to give you updates at the next meeting on that. Besides that, this may not be, the only other thing that I can mention for you all is that House Joint Bill 542, we have been working on our Virginia Transit Equity and Modernization Study. We are on the final stretch of that. So we have an action plan and a final report, and we plan to present our findings from the study to the Commonwealth Transportation Board, can't speak today, in either September or October, depending on their schedule. Information about the study, if they're curious about what we have completed to date, can be found on the study website. That's at vatransitmodernization.com. I also did include some notes about some other funding grant programs that are coming open with us internally. They may not have as much application to you all necessarily as the Kingsport MTPO, but it was just information on our transit ridership incentive program. And as a side note, Leslie did ask me to provide an update on your fiscal year 23 5303 funding. So just for everyone, if you're not familiar, that is the FTA apportionment that we allocate to our MPOs related to general statewide planning. Doesn't have to always be focused on transit, but we do encourage it as much. We had submitted the application for the state on behalf of all of our MPOs right around mid-May. I think it was around like May 18th or so. But right now we are currently waiting for FTA to approve the state application. But we have made sure that all of our MPOs are aware that they do have pre-award authority. So any expenses can be reimbursed starting from July 1st, 2022. So as soon as we get the approval from FTA, we'll be able to release the contracts for execution. But please rest assured that it's nothing that has to do with us or our MPOs. We're just kind of waiting for FTA to do the approvals. And that's all I have for my agency update. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thanks, Tiffany. Any questions for Tiffany? I don't see any. Since we're talking about transit, we'll go ahead and talk to our transit people. Is anybody here from MET or MEOC? Okay, I didn't recognize anybody, but there's a few people out here I don't recognize. And also, if you haven't signed in, make sure you sign in on the sign-in sheet. And if you're not on our email distribution list and you want to be, sign this one that has the highlighting at the top. So Candace, NetTrans, Candace.
Chase, will you hand your microphone back to Candace?
Yeah, if you have anything,
Okay.
just anything at all.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to thank Leslie for her recent help during our triennial review. She was a great partner and very helpful to us. And aside from that, we're just continuing transit as normal. We're running off, operating on normal schedules.
Candace Katz.
Hi, CATS is doing well. We are building a new transit garage. You may have seen it, but we are on track with that and should be pouring a concrete slab in about 2 weeks. So that is all on track. So that's good. We are about to have our 5th annual CATS driving rodeo. This is something that we do. It's a competition where drivers complete courses and showcase their driving skills, and it's a lot of fun. So it's just something that we're gearing up for. And then we're actually down 20%, just 20% of people are out right now. So we're finding it a little harder to offer the services that we want to continue to offer. But so we have pretty much some of the same struggles that other people are having, vehicle struggles that I've talked about before, but other than that, CATS is good.
Thank you. Blake, do you have anything from VDOT?
Just real quick, Leslie, as far as Smart Scale goes, the full application window closed on Monday and we had 22 applications in the Bristol district for Smart Scale. That'll go into validation, scoring, et cetera, as we work our way through announcing the selected projects toward the end of the year. The other thing we have going on right now with both Bristol MPO and Kingsport MTPO is the tip-stip update. We're working with MPO staff, PDC, to work through this in a timely manner, and I think that review is due by the end of this month. I will let everybody know that we do have a new hire coming in as planning specialist at VDOT. It will be Samantha Farmer. She'll start on the 10th of this coming month. So just be on the lookout for emails from her. She's joining us at VDOT, Matthew and I. So we're pretty excited about that. So I think that's about it, Leslie.
Any TDOT general updates before we get to projects?
Y'all got a planning grant. No, planning grant. So Kingsport was awarded a planning grant. There were 3 in Sullivan County actually awarded. Out of all the region 1. So we have 1 in Bristol. We have 1 at the edge of Bristol that's in the Sullivan County that Amber's going to watch after. And then we've got 1 with you all. So we're looking at State Route 93 and Stone Drive, looking at that main interchange, what we could do with it, which we already have a lot of information that's already come through from previous things that we've looked at. But we're also looking at State Route 93 as it goes up past the exits up to Bloomingdale Road. So look at access control and some of that area that's a little bit heavier traveled, has more conflict points. So those all have been all the match. We have everything and all the scopes are finalized. We were shooting for an August 1st date to have the information out. We're just waiting on all the checks to come in. And then we will go ahead and progress. All the consultants have been notified of our current status. So the one with Amber is more in the RPO than the NPO, but we gave them the NPO timeline. So we're looking at a year to completion. Next summer, we should have some reports on these for you all. And for everyone else, you'll see some information pushed out this fall as far as public meetings to get input in. And then later in the year, you'll see the final reports. So watch for different kind of surveys, stuff like that for all 3 of these.
And as far as our NPO stuff goes, of course, the local road safety plan you just heard about, we'll be adopting it when the draft is finalized. We will have a formal adoption of it. Our transportation improvement program, fiscal year 23 through 26, just got comments back from TDOT today. So Tennessee's a year ahead of Virginia with the tip stip. So what we do is adopt it and then we amend it whenever it's time to do Virginia's to add the new projects for Virginia in. But I just got TDOT's comments back today, so it will be adopted later this fall, probably the November meeting. And then Troy was just talking about the urban transportation planning grant that we've got. So project updates, are there any specific requests for project updates? I know we want to know Rock Springs Road because thought there would be a public meeting in spring or summer or so.
So he basically bundled it in with the State Route 36 from 75 to 81. About it waiting for funding. I'll double check with that because I just now noticed that he bundled it in with the bracketing. But the last correspondence I have is from a public or preliminary hearing they had on it in November. And they were showing that the meeting was supposed to be held this time this year, but of course, if it's not got funding, then they pushed it back. So, but I'll double check on that one for sure again, because like I said, I didn't catch it till just now that he bundled it with the 36.
Is there any other specific, we have our planning process review immediately following this meeting too. So we get to sit down with TDOT and Federal Highway and make sure we're doing everything we're supposed to be doing. But are there any other project specific updates requested?
State Route 93 Shipley Street Bridge repair.
So that one is behind. Contractor keeps on saying we'll be here Wednesday, put signs up. Yesterday they contacted, said we'll be there Monday. First phase will be redoing some shoulder work where we can shift traffic, close one lane of John B. Dennis and still be, I guess, going back and verifying that you are okay with Shipley Street itself being closed.
We just would like for y'all not to extend their contract any more than humanly possible.
Right now, in my opinion, they have no excuses. They're trying to give them that they're late in other regions, but right now our stance is,
That's our biggest thing is impacting school traffic and
Correct.
everything. And I know it's supposed to start during the summer. And so, yeah, no, that's.
So give you an FYI on that one, just so you'll know traffic. That's what I had on here for that one, is that they're supposed to start erecting signs on Monday. They'll start doing some shoulder work. Then they'll start putting in the permanent one lane conditions on 93, both north and southbound. But also, if you'll look at the August letting for TDOT projects, you'll see Sullivan County, State Route 93 again, be the bridge repair over the north, or the south fork of the Holston River and Eastman. And I'll go ahead and give you a heads up. It's got a completion date of 2024 on it. So there is a lot of work to be done to that bridge. So there's also going to be a stipulation in that one's contract that they cannot start that until Shipley Street is done, just because of the detour movements we need to do for wide loads through there.
That's good. That opens when? Next month, or this month?
August 19th is the letting date, period.
That's great. That's great.
So.
The Main Street rebuild project, we've opened bids, we've gotten through, the MPO board and everything. We have signed contract. We're working out material delivery issues right now. We think the start date will be October on that project and be a 2-year. That's where we're at on that.
The island road rebuild, how far up does that go? Is that just city?
Yes, they're near the city limits. Right there, just it goes out to Crockett Landing Golf Course and then tapers back in, so it's just barely in the non-city portion.
Other requests for projects?
On Memorial Boulevard, have y'all officially split phase 1 into A and B? And
Yes.
do y'all have a separate? Do we need to start listing those separately? And because
So
I'll have a
right
separate
now,
timeline.
they've actually adjusted it to where what they've given me from project development is phase 1, phase 2. Phase 1 goes to Briarwood Road, which is just west of Old Stage Road, and phase 2 will be from Briarwood Road to Cooks Valley Road, I believe it is, just on the other side of the cemetery. Right now, we're still actually buying right away, doing demos on structures on that section to Briarwood Road. So they're still looking at, our early summer to midsummer letting of that. 24, I'm sorry.
Yeah, they had sent it for the tip, and I had some questions when I submitted our draft tip, and they actually told me just to go ahead and take it out. So I guess we won't have it in the tip right now.
We often get questions about the Brickyard pedestrian bridge, so just on it, we're hung up in NEPA right now. Our consultant and TDOT agreed that there was no adverse historical effects of cutting part of the landing dock off, but SHPO did not agree with that. So we're trying to figure the best path forward to either, we have to look at is there any prudent relocation, or if we're going to propose mitigation efforts back to SHPO, but it's gotten mired down in that process for right now. Well, is there any other requests for project updates?
I'll say one more, Mike, if you don't care. Warriors Path State Park, the marina and everything will be finished by August. And as soon as they're done and they're kind of out of the way, paving contractor will be in doing Fall Creek Road, the main park drive, parking over on Duck Island, campground, and a few other of the parking locations. And that's supposed to be done by, I think, end of September, middle of October. So there'll be still a lot of heavy construction traffic going through Warriors Path.
All right, thank you for all those updates, Jason. If there are no other partner updates, well, one other commission, the new TDOT commissioner, Butch Ely, is that the correct pronunciation? He's going to be at Meadowview next Wednesday between 3 and 4:30 for a meet and greet reception. Anybody here is welcome to attend. Is there any RSVP requirements? There's not. Okay. So just want to make y'all aware of that. Marilyn and Craig put that together for us and have invited us all to come if we're available. Other than that, at this time, we'll have open a public comment period for any issues that are transportation related. They don't have to be agenda focused, but they do need to be of a general transportation nature. And those are limited to 5 minutes as well. If anybody has any comments.
Anybody online, raise your hand or put something in the Q&A so we know to recognize you. Oh, let me mention the airport, and Chris is on here. And as I mentioned, he's the new operations supervisor, but they will be starting work on a new master plan later this year. So we'll probably be getting some interaction and some updates from the airport.
Seeing nobody wanting to make public comment, we'll close the public comment period. And is there any other business comments that any of the members of the board would like to address before adjournment? If not, meeting adjourned. Thank y'all.
Thank you all online for attending and for the presentation.